Most people believe wealth announces itself. They think it arrives loudly wrapped in chrome leather and public approval. A car that turns heads, a watch that demands recognition, a vacation that must be photographed or it might as well not have happened. Society teaches this illusion early. If it can be seen, it must be real. That belief is useful, not to you, but to the system that profits from your confusion. True wealth does not perform. It does not seek applause. It does not rush to prove its existence. In fact, the closer someone gets to real financial power, the quieter they become. Not because they are humble, but because visibility is expensive and power prefers efficiency. The crowd mistakes consumption for success. They assume the man spending the most is winning. What they fail to see is that spending is often a confession, not a celebration. It reveals dependence, not dominance. The need to be admired is usually strongest when the foundation is weakest. Machiavelli understood this instinctively. Power, when real, avoids spectacle. It consolidates. It waits. It allows others to exhaust themselves in displays while it strengthens behind closed doors. Money follows the same logic. Quiet wealth is built through actions that feel unimpressive. Saying no when saying yes would earn approval. Skipping what feels deserved today to secure what will be untouchable tomorrow. Choosing boredom over excitement, discipline over drama, structure over impulse. There is no emotional payoff at the beginning, no signal that tells you are doing it right. In fact, the early stages of wealth feel almost indistinguishable from stagnation. Your life does not look upgraded. Your status does not improve. Your peers may even outpace you visibly. And that is where most people fail. They abandon strategy because it does not feel like progress. They chase visible wins because silence makes them uneasy. They want confirmation before commitment. The system happily provides that confirmation at a cost. Those who grow rich in silence understand a harder truth. Feelings are unreliable indicators of power. Wealth does not announce itself with confidence. It accumulates with restraint. It rewards those who can tolerate invisibility, those who can act without reassurance, those who do not require external validation to stay the course. This is why the truly wealthy often claim they do not feel rich. They are not lying. They are simply too focused on process to indulge in perception. Their attention is on positioning, not celebration, on leverage, not lifestyle. The public phase comes later if it comes at all. Most people reverse the order. They seek the appearance of wealth first, hoping the substance will follow. It rarely does. Appearances demand maintenance. Maintenance consumes capital. Capital that could have compounded quietly instead. Here is the rule the crowd never learns. Money grows best when no one is watching. The moment you feel the urge to signal success, you are no longer building it. You are defending an image, and images are fragile. They require constant feeding. Miss one payment, one paycheck, one favorable condition, and the illusion collapses. Quiet builders do not play that game. They understand that wealth is not a moment. It is a position, not a feeling, but a function. Not something you experience, but something that works for you. If your financial progress feels dull, slow, even anticlimactic, you may be closer than you think. The absence of excitement is not failure. It is insulation. Power does not rush, it prepares. And those who mistake silence for stagnation will always fund the rise of those who do not. The first hidden law. Who controls spending controls destiny. Spending is never neutral. Every dollar you release is a vote for comfort, for approval, or for control. Most people believe spending is about enjoyment. In reality, it is about obedience. The faster money leaves your hands, the more predictable your life becomes. The crowd spends first and thinks later. They react to desire, pressure, and fatigue. They buy relief. They buy belonging. They buy the illusion of progress. And in doing so, they quietly surrender leverage. The disciplined few understand a colder truth. Controlling spending is not about frugality. It is about dominance. The person who decides when money moves decides who has power. Not the one who earns the most. Not the one who displays the most. The one who withholds. Living below your means is misunderstood because it looks passive. It looks small. It lacks drama. But beneath that simplicity is a structural advantage most people never acquire. Margin. Margin is not extra money. Margin is optionality. It is the gap between what you earn and what you consume. That gap is invisible to spectators. But it is decisive in outcomes. It absorbs shocks. It buys patience. It allows refusal. And the ability to say no is the first true sign of freedom. Two men can earn the same income and live in entirely different realities. One consumes everything he earns. His life looks impressive, but it is brittle. Every expense is committed. Every month is already spent before it begins. He must continue performing, continue earning, continue pleasing. His lifestyle owns him. The other man leaves a portion untouched, not because he lacks desire, but because he understands timing. He delays gratification not out of virtue but out of strategy. That untouched portion compounds quietly while the spender works to maintain appearances. The spender believes he is enjoying life. The controller is positioning himself. This is where most people misunderstand sacrifice. They think restraint is loss. It is not. It is conversion. You are trading short-term pleasure for long-term command. You are converting money into leverage instead of consumption into memory. Machiavelli would recognize this immediately. Power does not exhaust itself for applause. It conserves. It waits for moments that matter. It avoids unnecessary battles and unnecessary expenses. Every wasted resource is a vulnerability. The modern equivalent is impulse spending. It feels harmless. It feels earned. But it trains dependence. Each impulse satisfied strengthens the habit of reaction, and reaction is the enemy of control. Those who master their spending do something radical. They redefine enough not upward but inward. Their satisfaction is not outsourced to objects. It is anchored in autonomy. They do not need to prove success because they are building inevitability. This discipline compounds quietly. 10 years of controlled spending does more than create savings. It rewires identity. You stop needing external affirmation. You stop chasing signals of status. You begin to value durability over display. And this is where fate shifts. The person with margin can endure downturns. They can invest when others panic. They can walk away from bad deals, bad jobs, bad environments. They are not trapped by monthly obligations disguised as rewards. The person without margin must accept whatever terms are offered. Their destiny is negotiated for them by landlords, lenders, employers, and circumstances. Control spending and you control the rate at which others can pressure you. Lose control of spending and your life becomes reactive no matter how high your income climbs. This is the first hidden law because without it, no other strategy works. Investing, risk, ambition, none of it survives if consumption leaks power faster than income can replace it. Wealth does not begin with earning more. It begins with deciding who your money serves. And until it serves you, it will always rule you. The second hidden law: the long-term player always consumes the impatient. Impatience is the most expensive habit in finance, not because it feels reckless, but because it disguises itself as ambition. The impatient believe they are moving faster. In truth, they are simply changing direction too often to build momentum. The world rewards those who can wait, but it never advertises this fact because patience does not sell products, courses, or hope. Waiting is quiet. It produces no immediate signal of progress. And for most people, silence is intolerable. So they chase movement instead of position. The impatient mind seeks the shortcut, the quick win, the opportunity that promises compression of time, stocks that double overnight. Businesses that scale in months, trades that feel clever. They want proof now, even if it costs them later. The long-term player wants something else, inevitability. They understand a principle the crowd avoids. Wealth is not created by intensity but by duration. Consistency outperforms brilliance. Repetition outperforms excitement. And compounding rewards those who do not interfere. This is why the long-term investor often appears inactive. They contribute steadily. They automate. They continue when conditions are unfavorable. They do not adjust strategy based on emotion, headlines, or noise. Their discipline is boring and therefore lethal to competitors. The impatient cannot tolerate this. They need engagement. They need stimulation. They confuse volatility with opportunity. Every fluctuation becomes a reason to act. Every new idea becomes a reason to abandon the old one. And in doing so, they reset the clock again and again. Machiavelli warned against this behavior in politics long before it infected finance. The ruler who changes direction with every threat appears responsive but becomes weak. The one who holds position even under pressure forces others to adapt to him. Markets function the same way. The long-term player does not predict outcomes. They prepare for probabilities. They do not attempt to time perfection. They build exposure and allow time to do what effort cannot. Impatience interrupts compounding. Each withdrawal, each panic sale, each strategic pivot in search of speed fractures momentum. What could have grown quietly is harvested too early and consumed. The impatient man often has stories, lessons learned, opportunities missed, close calls. He sounds experienced, but experience without accumulation is simply motion without progress. The long-term player has fewer stories and more results. This law is cruel but consistent. The patient inherit what the impatient abandon. Every market downturn transfers assets from those who need certainty to those who can tolerate ambiguity. Every cycle punishes urgency and rewards restraint. Quiet wealth grows because it avoids self-sabotage. It removes the human impulse to interfere. Automatic contributions, infrequent evaluation, minimal reaction. The system runs while the person steps back. This is not laziness. It is control. Those who play the long game accept a delayed identity. They do not feel successful early. They are not celebrated mid-journey. Their environment may even doubt them. but time works relentlessly on their behalf. The impatient seek relief. The disciplined seek outcome. One consumes energy chasing speed. The other allows time to multiply effort, and over years, sometimes decades, the difference becomes irreversible. The long-term player does not defeat the impatient in a single move. They simply outlast them. And when the impatient are exhausted, distracted or forced to retreat, the patient remain positioned, prepared and quietly dominant. This is why long-term thinking feels lonely, and why it works. Because in every system governed by compounding, the one who can wait does not just win. They take everything left behind. The third hidden law, cash reserves are silent power. Most people misunderstand emergency funds because they misunderstand power. They see cash sitting idle and assume inefficiency. They ask why money is doing nothing, unaware that inaction can be strategic. In reality, cash reserves are not about return, they are about control. A person without reserves is always negotiating from weakness. They may earn well, they may appear stable, but the absence of a buffer turns every disruption into a threat. A broken car, a delayed paycheck, a health issue, a sudden layoff. Each event forces reaction, and reaction under pressure produces poor decisions. The individual with reserves experiences the same events and responds differently. They do not rush, they do not panic. They do not accept unfavorable terms simply to survive. This difference is not emotional, it is structural. Machiavelli understood that armies do not lose wars in battle alone. They lose when supply lines fail. When reserves are exhausted, when endurance collapses before opposition does. Finance follows the same rule. Those with reserves do not need to win every encounter. They simply need to last longer than the chaos. Cash is often mocked because it lacks glamour. It does not compound aggressively. It does not signal intelligence. It cannot be bragged about without revealing insecurity. But that is precisely why it is powerful. It operates below the surface. Reserves buy time. Time to evaluate. Time to negotiate. Time to wait for conditions to shift. Time is the most underestimated asset in financial strategy. Without reserves, you must accept whatever price is offered, whatever interest rate, whatever salary, whatever timeline. Urgency removes choice, and the absence of choice is the absence of power. This is why debt is so effective at controlling behavior. It creates urgency by design. Monthly obligations force compliance. The debtor must act, the lender can wait. Cash reverses this dynamic. The person with reserves becomes the one who can delay, and the one who can delay controls the interaction. They can walk away from bad deals. They can endure temporary setbacks without liquidating long-term positions. They can observe others making mistakes and act when advantage appears. Most people build reserves only after disaster strikes. They learn the lesson backward when the cost is highest. The strategic builder prepares for volatility before it arrives, not after it reveals itself. This preparation is quiet. No one congratulates it. No one applauds a savings account. But when systems break, as they always do, those with reserves experience inconvenience while those without experience collapse. The presence of cash changes psychology. Fear recedes, clarity improves. Decisions become deliberate instead of defensive. This is silent power. Not the power to dominate others, but the power to avoid being dominated by circumstance. Those without reserves are easy to manipulate. Employers know it, lenders know it. Markets know it. Pressure works best on those with no margin. A small shock is enough to force submission. Those with reserves are harder to move. They do not threaten, they do not boast. They simply do not break. And because they do not break, they accumulate advantage over time. 3 to 6 months of expenses may not sound impressive, but it places you ahead of most. It means your life is not held hostage by the next unexpected event. It means volatility becomes manageable instead of catastrophic. In a world that grows more unstable, resilience becomes currency. Cash reserves do not make you rich overnight. They make you unshakable. And the unshakable eventually inherit the space left behind by those who were forced to fold. That is why reserves are not a safety measure. They are a position of power, held quietly and exercised only when necessary. The fourth hidden law, immunity to lifestyle inflation. Lifestyle inflation is one of the most efficient traps ever designed. It does not feel like failure. It feels like reward. A raise arrives and with it comes permission to upgrade, to expand, to indulge. Society applauds this progression. Marketers depend on it. Employers quietly expect it. And yet, for those who understand power, this moment is not a celebration. It is a test. Most people fail it immediately. As income rises, spending rises to meet it. The apartment grows larger. The car grows newer. The conveniences multiply. None of these choices feel irresponsible in isolation. Together they form a system of dependency that quietly neutralizes progress. The illusion is cruel. Externally, life looks better. Internally, leverage remains unchanged. The disciplined individual behaves differently. They allow income to rise while keeping their baseline stable. Not out of deprivation, but out of calculation. They understand that every fixed expense added to their life reduces future flexibility. Each upgrade is a contract with the future, one that must be honored regardless of circumstances. Machiavelli warned rulers against excess after victory. The moment of triumph is when discipline is most likely to erode. Comfort weakens vigilance. Success invites carelessness. Financial life obeys the same principle. Immunity to lifestyle inflation is not about refusing pleasure. It is about controlling timing. The person who resists upgrading when income increases is not standing still. They are redirecting force. What does not go into consumption flows into assets, investments, and optionality. Progress continues but underground. This is why truly advancing individuals often appear unchanged. Their clothes are similar. Their habits are familiar. Their lifestyle is unremarkable. But beneath the surface, capital is accumulating. Quietly, relentlessly, the spender feels richer because their environment has improved. The accumulator becomes richer because their position has strengthened. This difference compounds brutally over time. Two individuals receive identical raises. One translates it into higher rent, new payments, and additional obligations. The other channels it into ownership, equity, investments, systems that produce without constant effort. Years later, the spender is trapped by the life they built to feel successful. The accumulator owns assets that can absorb shocks, create freedom, and reshape their future. Lifestyle inflation disguises captivity as comfort. Once you increase your standard of living, it becomes your new baseline. Returning downward feels like loss, even if it is strategically sound. This psychological asymmetry locks people into decisions made in moments of optimism. The immune individual understands this danger. They delay upgrades not because they cannot afford them, but because they do not want to be owned by them. This restraint creates asymmetry. While others celebrate progress loudly and exhaust their gains, the immune individual widens the gap between income and obligation. That gap is power. They do not ask, what can I buy now? They ask, what does this income allow me to avoid buying? Avoidance is an underestimated strategy. Every unnecessary upgrade refused preserves future freedom. Every fixed cost avoided keeps options open over time. This discipline builds a life that can bend without breaking. Lifestyle inflation ensures you must keep running to stand still. Immunity allows you to stop and let compounding do the work. The truly dangerous individual is not the one who earns more. It is the one who earns more and needs nothing extra to maintain control. They do not look wealthy. They are becoming untouchable, and by the time others realize the difference, the distance is no longer bridgeable. The fifth hidden law, he who does not compare cannot be led. Comparison is not a weakness. It is a weapon aimed at you. Modern society is built on engineered comparison. Every platform, every advertisement, every public signal is designed to provoke a single reaction. Measure yourself against others, then act. The result is predictable. Desire replaces judgment. Imitation replaces strategy. Those who compare are easy to move. They do not act based on need or plan. They act based on proximity. What others display becomes a reference point. What others acquire becomes a silent standard. And slowly, without realizing it, their financial decisions are no longer their own. The person who escapes comparison escapes manipulation. This does not happen through moral superiority or self-help affirmations. It happens through clarity. The disciplined individual understands a brutal truth. Most visible wealth is either borrowed, temporary, or strategically misleading. Public success is often staged. Machiavelli warned that appearances are tools. The ruler who appears powerful may not be. The ruler who is powerful rarely needs to appear so. In financial life, those who broadcast success are often compensating for fragility beneath the surface. The comparer assumes visibility equals reality. The strategist assumes visibility equals incentive. Once you internalize this, envy loses its grip. A new car no longer triggers urgency. A luxury trip no longer feels like a referendum on your worth. You recognize the performance for what it is. Someone else's choice funded by unknown trade-offs. This realization is liberating. When you stop comparing, you stop reacting. And when you stop reacting, you regain control. Decisions are no longer made to keep up. They are made to move forward. The non-comparer builds according to an internal map. Goals are personal. Timelines are private. Progress is measured in position, not applause. This makes them immune to three forces that keep most people financially weak: marketing, peer pressure, and fear of missing out. Marketing loses power when status signaling no longer motivates you. Peer pressure collapses when your identity is not dependent on external approval. Fear of missing out evaporates when you understand that most opportunities presented to you are designed to benefit someone else. The comparer, by contrast, is permanently late. They arrive after the price has risen. They buy after the hype has peaked. They upgrade when the obligation is highest. They believe they are choosing freely. They are not. They are responding to cues. The non-comparer sees a different game. They know that financial independence requires solitude of thought, that following the crowd, even a successful-looking one, leads to average outcomes at best. This solitude is uncomfortable at first. It creates distance. It invites doubt. It removes the emotional validation that comes from shared behavior. But over time it creates strength. Those who do not compare move quietly. They do not announce milestones. They do not seek reassurance. Their confidence is not loud because it is not fragile. By the time the comparer realizes the cost of imitation, the non-comparer has already compounded years of disciplined advantage. The gap did not form through intelligence or luck. It formed through restraint. In every era, those who control the narrative control behavior. Those who step outside the narrative control themselves. To stop comparing is not to disengage from the world. It is to refuse to be steered by it. And once you cannot be steered, you cannot be exploited. That is why the one who does not compare is the one who eventually wins without ever appearing to compete. The sixth hidden law. When money becomes background noise. When money dominates your thoughts, it controls your behavior. Every decision becomes a calculation. Every choice feels constrained. Life shrinks into a series of trade-offs measured in dollars and anxiety. This is not a moral failure. It is a structural one. People who are financially weak talk about money constantly. Not because they love it, but because they are trapped by it. The shift begins when money stops being the main character. This does not happen when income spikes or when net worth crosses an arbitrary number. It happens when systems replace vigilance, when rules replace emotion, when structure replaces improvisation. Machiavelli understood that a ruler who must constantly intervene reveals weakness. True authority is invisible. It operates through institutions, not commands. Financial power follows the same logic. When your money requires constant attention, you are managing scarcity. When it runs without you, you are approaching control. The individual who has quietly leveled up builds mechanisms, automatic contributions, scheduled investments, predictable expenses, infrequent but deliberate review. They remove themselves from daily negotiation, not because they are careless, but because they have designed an environment that no longer demands constant decision-making. This design frees mental bandwidth. When money becomes background noise, your attention moves to higher-order problems. Time, direction, meaning, influence. You stop optimizing pennies and start allocating energy. This transition marks a fundamental change in position. The person still trapped in survival mode is busy but ineffective. They chase discounts. They rotate side hustles. They argue over interest rates on credit cards they cannot pay off. Their mental energy is consumed by maintenance rather than growth. They appear industrious. They are not progressing. The one whose money runs quietly appears disengaged. In reality, they have simply moved to a different level of the game. They no longer need to micromanage the basics. The foundation is stable. This stability is not accidental. It is engineered. Most people fear automation because it feels like surrendering control. In truth, automation is the highest form of control. It removes the weakest variable from the system: emotion. Emotional decision-making is expensive. It leads to overreaction, underinvestment, and inconsistency. Systems do not panic. Systems do not chase. Systems execute. This is why financial maturity often looks boring. There are no dramatic moves, no constant adjustments, no obsession with new cycles. The work was done earlier. What remains is monitoring, not intervention. Money in the background creates a specific posture toward life. You are not rushed. You are not desperate. You are not easily distracted. Opportunities are evaluated, not seized blindly. Risks are calculated, not avoided or embraced impulsively. You are no longer negotiating from urgency. Those who have not reached this stage misunderstand it. They assume complacency. They mistake quiet for stagnation. They believe constant activity is necessary for progress. Machiavelli would recognize the error immediately. Power does not announce itself through motion. It is revealed through stability. When money fades into the background, it has achieved its proper role. It is no longer an object of fixation. It is a tool, reliable, silent, and obedient. At this point, wealth stops being something you chase. It becomes something that supports. And when money supports rather than demands, your life expands. This is not the end of ambition. It is the beginning of leverage. Because once money no longer consumes your attention, you are free to focus on what multiplies it without even trying. That is the quiet moment when control replaces struggle. And struggle never returns once control is established. The seventh hidden law: the rich do not buy things, they buy time. Most people believe money is meant to purchase objects, houses, cars, clothes, experiences packaged as proof of living. Well, this belief is encouraged because objects are visible, measurable, and easy to desire. Time, by contrast, is subtle. It cannot be displayed. It cannot be flexed, and once lost, it cannot be reclaimed. Those who accumulate real wealth understand this early or learn it painfully later. Money is not valuable for what it buys, but for what it removes. The poor trade time for money because they have no choice. The middle class trade money for comfort because they believe that is progress. The wealthy trade money for time because they understand hierarchy. Time is the highest currency. Machiavelli warned rulers against being consumed by logistics. A leader trapped in operational details loses strategic vision. The same is true for individuals. When your life is filled with tasks that could be delegated, your potential is capped by your availability. The shift occurs when you begin to ask a dangerous question. What is my time actually worth? Most people avoid this calculation because the answer is uncomfortable. It reveals how much of life is spent on maintenance rather than creation, cleaning, commuting, shopping, scheduling. These activities feel productive, but they produce nothing lasting. The wealthy do not romanticize business. They see it for what it is: friction. When money becomes stable, a new pattern emerges. You begin to pay to remove friction, not to indulge, but to reclaim attention. You outsource what drains you. You compress what distracts you. You say no to obligations that do not compound. This behavior looks wasteful to those who equate effort with virtue. In reality, it is surgical. Every hour recovered is reinvested into thinking, building, resting, or simply living without urgency. The person who insists on doing everything themselves may appear disciplined. Often they are simply trapped in a low-leverage loop. Saving small amounts of money at the cost of large amounts of time is a losing trade. Time once freed changes everything. Decisions slow down. Perspective widens. Creativity resurfaces. You are no longer reacting to the date. You are shaping it. White space appears on the calendar, and with it the ability to choose. The non-wealthy fill their schedules to feel important. The wealthy protect empty space because it is where clarity lives. This is why rich individuals often seem less busy. They are not less productive. They are less distracted. They understand that constant motion is a sign of misallocation, not effectiveness. Buying time also means buying the right to refuse. Refusing meetings that serve no purpose. Refusing work that drains energy without advancing position. Refusing urgency imposed by others' lack of planning. The ability to refuse is one of the clearest indicators of power. Those without time cannot say no. Their calendar decides for them. Their availability is consumed before intention enters the equation. Those who have reclaimed time live differently. They are harder to pressure, harder to rush, harder to manipulate. They do not need to appear busy to feel valuable. They understand something fundamental. Life expands to fill the time you protect. Not the things you acquire. Objects decay, experiences fade. Time once invested wisely multiplies. This is why the wealthy do not chase deals. They chase alignment. They do not optimize for savings. They optimize for freedom. Money spent on time is never wasted. It compounds in silence through better decisions, deeper focus, and a life lived deliberately rather than defensively. In the end, wealth is not measured by what you own. It is measured by how much of your day truly belongs to you. The eighth hidden law: power begins with absolute responsibility. The moment you surrender responsibility, you surrender power, not gradually, immediately. Most people do not fail financially because they lack opportunity. They fail because they outsource agency. They explain their position instead of changing it. They narrate their constraints until those constraints become identity. This is not ignorance. It is comfort. Blame is soothing. Responsibility is cold. Machiavelli understood this better than most. A ruler who explains weakness loses authority. A ruler who adapts within constraints retains it. Circumstances are never fair, but power does not negotiate with fairness, it operates on control. Absolute responsibility is not optimism. It is not self-help. It is not denial of reality. It is the refusal to allow reality to excuse inaction. Those who are quietly getting rich change their language before they change their balance sheet. They stop saying, "I cannot afford that." They say, "That is not a priority." This distinction is not semantic, it is psychological positioning. "I cannot place his authority outside the self." That is not a priority reclaims it. The first frames you as a victim of circumstances. The second frames you as an allocator of resources. This shift is subtle but decisive. The person who takes absolute responsibility does not deny constraints. They acknowledge them and then work inside them ruthlessly. High cost of living: optimize housing, low income, increase skill. Leverage or reduce burn rate, debt, restructure and pause expansion. No drama, no complaints, no public justification. They do not wait for conditions to improve. They improve positioning so conditions matter less. By contrast, those who avoid responsibility collect reasons. The economy, the system, the timing, their upbringing, their city, their generation. None of these explanations are false, but all of them are irrelevant to outcome. Reality does not reward correct explanations. It rewards effective behavior. Machiavelli warned that leaders who rely on excuses invite overthrow. In personal finance, excuses invite stagnation. Each justification delays action. Each delay compounds disadvantage. The responsible individual does not moralize their choices. They do not claim to deserve comfort. They do not dramatize sacrifice, they act. They choose cheaper options without resentment. They delay upgrades without self-pity. They accept temporary discomfort as a strategic phase, not a permanent identity. They understand that dignity does not come from consumption. It comes from control. This mindset compounds faster than money. Once you accept full responsibility, decision-making sharpens. You stop negotiating with impulse. You stop blaming friction. You stop waiting for permission. You see clearly what can be changed and what must be endured. Endurance is underrated power. Those who endure without complaint outlast those who seek validation for their struggle. Over time, endurance becomes advantage and advantage becomes leverage. This is why absolute responsibility is feared. It removes excuses, it removes sympathy. It removes the option to stay the same. But it gives something far more valuable in return: authorship. You become the author of your financial reality, not instantly, not comfortably, but irreversibly. And once you are the author, money stops being something that happens to you. It becomes something you command. This is the final law, because without it, none of the others survive pressure. Discipline breaks, patience erodes, systems decay. But with it, even limited resources can be turned into momentum. Power does not arrive when conditions are perfect. It begins the moment you stop explaining and start deciding. Conclusion. Wealth is not a feeling, it is a position. Most people spend their lives waiting for a feeling that never arrives. The feeling of having made it, the emotional confirmation that tells them they are finally safe, successful, and allowed to relax. They believe wealth will announce itself internally the same way it is advertised externally. It does not. Wealth does not arrive as certainty or relief. It arrives as structure, as leverage, as the quiet absence of urgency. Those who wait to feel rich before acting never do the work required to become positioned. Feelings follow exposure, not discipline. Position follows discipline, not emotion. This misunderstanding is why so many remain trapped. They are waiting for motivation, inspiration, or confidence. Meanwhile, those who build real wealth move forward without any of it. They act while uncertain. They commit without applause. They endure phases that feel unrewarded because they understand something the crowd does not. Position compounds long before emotion catches up. Machiavelli warned against mistaking perception for power. A prince admired but unprotected is weak. A prince uncelebrated but fortified is dangerous. Financial life mirrors this exactly. Those who look wealthy may command attention. Those who are wealthy command options. Position is not visible. It is structural. It is the ability to withstand shocks without collapsing. The ability to refuse without fear. The ability to wait while others rush. These capacities do not generate excitement. They generate asymmetry. This is why the path feels lonely. There are no checkpoints, no applause, no visible milestones that reassure you. In fact, there are long stretches where progress feels indistinguishable from stagnation. Your lifestyle remains unchanged. Your identity feels delayed. Your environment may even question your choices. That discomfort is the cost of separation. Most people turn back here. They seek validation. They upgrade prematurely. They re-enter the race for appearances because invisibility feels like failure. In doing so, they sacrifice position for comfort. Those who continue understand that wealth is not an event. It is a posture. A posture of patience, a posture of restraint, a posture of ownership. Once this posture is established, outcomes become predictable, not dramatic, but inevitable. Over time, leverage replaces effort. Systems replace stress. Optionality replaces dependency. This is why real wealth cannot be taken easily. Recessions may reduce valuations. Job loss may disrupt income. Markets may fluctuate, but position, if built correctly, absorbs impact instead of amplifying it. Those who built feelings collapse under pressure. Those who built position adapt. Quiet wealth survives because it does not need attention to function. It was never dependent on praise, trends, or favorable conditions. It was designed to endure. If your journey feels slow, uncelebrated, or anticlimactic, you may be exactly where you should be. The absence of emotional reward is not a warning sign. It is insulation. Power does not rush. It accumulates. And by the time wealth becomes visible, it is no longer necessary to display it. The need for proof disappears when control is absolute. In the end, the richest individuals are not those who feel rich. They are those who are untouchable, not because they have more, but because they need less, owe nothing, and decide for themselves. Wealth is not a feeling you arrive at. It is a position you quietly occupy long before anyone notices.